I discovered my wife's infidelity while on vacation with our children in July 2021. It was a gut-wrenching revelation that shattered the foundation of our 10-year marriage and turned my world upside down. The betrayal cut deep, but it was only the beginning of a painful journey that would test my emotional resilience and force me to confront harsh truths about our relationship. Upon returning home, I confronted my wife about what I had seen on our Ring doorbell camera. She initially denied everything, claiming it was just a new female coworker visiting. But her story didn't add up, and my suspicions only grew. For 2 agonizing weeks, I grappled with uncertainty and doubt, trying to uncover the truth while maintaining a facade of normalcy for our children. Finally, unable to bear the weight of suspicion any longer, I made the difficult decision to access my wife's phone. What I found was far worse than I had imagined: evidence of a 2-week, hardcore sex romp with another man. The explicit content and twisted commentary I discovered left me feeling physically ill. My wife had not only invited the stranger into our home but had also engaged in intimate acts in our living room, even sending him videos of herself. The betrayal felt complete and utterly devastating. As I delved deeper into their exchanges, I uncovered discussions about whether I would figure out their affair. The casual way they spoke about deceiving me only compounded my pain. In a moment of raw anger, I called the man from my wife's phone, confronting him about his role in destroying my marriage. Our marital problems, I realized, ran deeper than this affair. 3 years prior, my wife had lost her son in a tragic accident. The grief had pushed her into alcoholism, and our relationship had suffered as a result. For years, I had watched helplessly as she spiraled, spending most nights passed out on the couch or retreating to bed early to escape reality. Learning that her affair partner was someone she met through Alcoholics Anonymous felt like a cruel twist of fate. This man, supposedly a leader in the program, had violated one of AA's core principles by engaging with someone in crisis. The hypocrisy of it all left a bitter taste in my mouth. In the immediate aftermath of my discovery, my wife asked for a divorce. Despite the betrayal, I found myself desperately trying to salvage our marriage. For 3 days, I pleaded with her to reconsider, to give our relationship another chance. But it soon became clear that her attempts at reconciliation were merely a ploy to calm me down. She still wanted out. The emotional whiplash of those days was intense. One moment, she would be sleeping in our shared bedroom, giving me hope that we could work things out. The next, she would reaffirm her desire for divorce. In a moment of weakness and hurt, I lashed out, reading her texts with the other man back to her. It was a petty act, one that I'm not proud of, but it stemmed from the overwhelming pain and confusion I was experiencing. As I lay alone in our bedroom that night, I grappled with a storm of conflicting emotions. Guilt, anger, sadness, and confusion swirled within me. Strangely, I found myself feeling guilty for her actions, as if I had somehow driven her to this betrayal. The gaslighting effect of the situation left me questioning my own perceptions and reactions. Sleep became elusive. Night after night, I would wake drenched in sweat, haunted by dreams I couldn't remember. The stress of the situation manifested physically, leaving me exhausted and emotionally drained. Surprisingly, I found that I didn't harbor much hostility towards my wife. Perhaps it was the shock of the situation or the lingering love I still felt for her. But the man who had entered our home, who had participated in the destruction of our family, for him, I felt a burning anger that was hard to quell. In a twisted attempt to process my emotions, I set the audio from the self-made porn video my wife had sent her lover as her ringtone on my phone. Her laughter from the doorbell camera, joking about surprising me, became my new message alert. These morbid reminders served as a constant, painful prod, keeping the reality of her betrayal at the forefront of my mind. As we moved towards divorce, the practical realities of our separation began to set in. I found myself having to dig through our finances, preparing for the possibility of losing thousands of dollars to divorce attorneys. The injustice of having to pay to end a marriage destroyed by my wife's infidelity felt like salt in an open wound. Adding to the complexity of the situation was the fact that my wife was still involved with the other man. It seemed that she had replaced her alcohol addiction with a new dependence on sex, using it as an escape from her emotional pain. Reflecting on our marriage, I couldn't help but consider our lackluster sex life over the past 3 years. Since the loss of her son, intimacy had become a rare occurrence. Most nights, she would be too drunk to engage or would go to bed early, leaving me feeling lonely and disconnected. I wanted to blame myself for not doing more, for not being able to reach her in her grief. But I knew that the situation was more complex than that. There had been attempts on both sides to address our issues. She had asked for more sex, while I had pleaded for intimacy and begged her to stop drinking. Curiously, she did stop drinking after her affair began, but she also chose to leave our marriage. The timing suggested that her affair partner, possibly someone from AA, had influenced her decision. Like many in my situation, I found myself wishing I could turn back time. I recognized that my wife needed help, but I felt powerless to provide it. My attempts to get her to see a counselor were met with repeated cancellations. It seemed she preferred to start fresh with someone who knew nothing about our history or our family. The woman I woke up next to each morning now felt like a stranger. She wanted out of our marriage and seemed to have forgotten everything we had been through together. 10 years of shared experiences, traumas we had weathered side by side, all of it dismissed with the casual remark that anyone would have done the same in supporting her. My heart was shattered, and I found myself navigating this painful journey with a person I no longer recognized at the helm. I clung to the hope that one day she would wake up and realize the magnitude of what she had done, but I knew I couldn't count on that for my own healing. As I grappled with the end of my marriage, I also had to confront the challenges of co-parenting. The thought of my children being exposed to this other man, of him potentially taking on a parental role in their lives, was almost unbearable. I found myself torn between wanting to protect them from the fallout of our failed marriage and needing to maintain some semblance of a relationship with their mother for their sake. The process of divorce brought its own set of challenges. Dividing assets, negotiating custody arrangements, and untangling our intertwined lives proved to be a Herculean task. Each decision, each agreement, felt like another nail in the coffin of our relationship. As I navigated this new reality, I struggled to maintain my professional life. The emotional toll of the divorce affected my concentration and productivity. I found myself having to explain my situation to colleagues and superiors, a humiliating experience that only added to my stress. Support came from unexpected places. Friends and family rallied around me, offering shoulders to cry on and ears to listen. Their unwavering presence reminded me that I wasn't alone in this struggle, even when it felt like my world was crumbling around me. Therapy became a lifeline, providing a safe space to process my emotions and work through the trauma of betrayal. It was in these sessions that I began to recognize the patterns in our relationship that had led to this point, and to understand that healing would be a long and challenging process. As the days turned into weeks and months, I slowly began to rebuild my life. I focused on being the best father I could be, cherishing the time I had with my children and working to create a stable, loving environment for them despite the upheaval in our family. I also started to rediscover myself as an individual, separate from my identity as a husband. I rekindled old hobbies, made new friends, and began to envision a future that didn't include my wife. It was a bittersweet process, tinged with both hope and sadness. Looking back on this tumultuous period, I can see how far I've come. The pain of betrayal, while still present, has dulled. I've learned valuable lessons about trust, resilience, and self-worth. While I wouldn't wish this experience on anyone, I recognize that it has shaped me into a stronger, more self-aware person. The journey of healing is ongoing. There are still days when the weight of what happened threatens to overwhelm me. But I face each day with the knowledge that I survived the worst of it, and that I have the strength to continue moving forward. My focus now is on creating a positive future for myself and my children, and on finding joy and fulfillment in this new chapter of my life.